Item 5 is consider authorizing staff to issue a request for qualifications for public engagement and design services for PR 21-2407 Youth Sports Complex Exit, 27th Street Extension Project, and approving appointments to a 27th Street Steering Committee.
Good evening again. Dave Cronin, City Engineer, Municipal Services and Operations. All right, I'm going to share my screen here. We're going to talk about the 27th Street Extension Project. Earlier this year, staff submitted this project for consideration in the 2021-2025 CIP to improve safety and access to the park facilities located south and west of K10 by connecting 27th Street between the Youth Sports Complex and the Mutt Run Dog Park. When the Youth Sports Complex and the softball complex are being used, traffic is congested at the K10 and 27th Street signal, both getting into the park and exiting the park, as it's the only access point. During peak usage of the complex, vehicles exiting the park can experience wait times of up to 30 minutes. And with the completion of the east leg of the South Lawrence Traffic Way, we've also seen a significant increase in traffic on K10, which has created more delay at the intersection of 27th Street. We've also seen an increase in traffic crashes at the intersection. In 2019, KDOT conducted a study to review possible interim improvements to the intersection to mitigate congestion and improve safety prior to permanent improvements to build a grade separated interchange. The study focused on low-cost improvements that could be implemented within a year and also medium to high cost improvements that could be done in a few years. The low-cost improvements, including turn lanes and turning movement restrictions, are currently under construction. Of the medium to higher cost concepts that were reviewed with the study, the preferred concept was to build an interchange with K10 over Wakarusa. This would be done with one bridge. It could be a project that could be done that could also be used with the ultimate condition of 4 lanes on K10 and interchange improvements. KDOT's proceeding with to 30% design plans with that concept. We'd expect to see those here pretty soon. There's no timeline on construction of that project at this point, but we are glad they're moving forward with that, as that was the preferred concept from that study. The study also considered a concept to extend 27th Street for a secondary access to the park. This concept was recommended to be considered in the future and that it could be done ahead of the interchange project. This aerial here kind of shows an indication of the proposed location and connection here from the end of 27th Street over across the spillway to 27th Street on the west side of the park. The 27th Street project is currently in the 2021 capital improvement plan with $1 million intergovernmental grant and $250,000 from the city's general fund. In May, the city submitted an application to KDOT's cost share program for the project. And when we reviewed that a little more in detail and put together a cost estimate with the design and construction cost was estimated to be $1,550,000. The city was awarded the project in July, just over $1 million. And with the estimated cost of the project, the city share would be approximately $550,000, and a budget adjustment of $300,000 would be required to fully fund the project as currently estimated. I would say the estimate that we put together included not only the connection of 27th Street, but also a connection to the YSC access here, and also the inclusion of a shared use path along the north side of the road over to the dog park. And that extension of a shared use path would be consistent with what is shown in our bike plan for a future bikeway. Upon receiving the grant in July, we heard a lot of concern from users of the Mutt Run Dog Park regarding safety of the area with a potential increase in traffic. Parks and Rec has developed conceptual improvements for a separate project to improve Mutt Run, including moving the parking lot and adding fences. These projects would be completed prior to the road project, and could be completed even if we don't do this road project. But I would say that although staff has considered the need for improvements at the dog park with the roadway extension project, it's clear that we have done a poor job in communication and engagement of the roadway project. I think we could do a better job, and going forward, we are recommending hitting a pause button here and establishing a community engagement process before we proceed with design plans. So what we are recommending is to utilize consultant services for a two-step process. One would be community engagement, and two, final design. During the community engagement process, we would hold public meetings facilitated by consultants, and with the assistance of the steering committee, help develop project goals and objectives. Based on the concerns we've heard from users of the dog park, I think it would be good for us to identify the feasibility of alternate alignments for the road and the impacts that they would have. Ultimately, the Army Corps of Engineers owns this ground and will need to review and approve any details of the proposed roadway. So we will need to keep them involved as we move through the process. At the end of the community engagement process, we would develop public input summaries and concepts that would be presented to the Parks and Rec Advisory Board, Multimodal Transportation Commission, and City Commission prior to proceeding with step 2, final design. So staff has identified individuals to serve on a 27th Street Steering Committee to represent stakeholders, including the dog park, Lawrence Youth Football, Sporting Cow Valley Soccer, Lawrence Youth Baseball, the Arboretum, and Flat. In addition, 2 members from both the Multimodal Transportation Commission and Parks and Rec Advisory Board would serve on the committee. So the action requested tonight is to authorize staff to issue a request for qualifications for public engagement and design services for the Youth Sports Complex Exit Project, and approve appointments to a 27th Street Steering Committee. Approving this action tonight does not commit the city to a particular road alignment, to acceptance of the grant funds, or any expenditure of funds. And just wanted to note a few action items that would still be before the City Commission upon receiving authorization to seek proposals. We would bring back a recommendation for a scope and fee for a consultant for the public engagement process. We would still also need to seek approval for the $300,000 budget adjustment for design and construction. We have identified funding in the 2020 budget from excess KDOT federal funds that we have to put to this project. We would also, in the future, bring a KDOT city-state agreement to accept the grant funds. Upon going through the public engagement process, we would bring back that public input summary and then get authorization to proceed with the final design. And upon completion of the design, we would seek approval on the final design plans and then seek authorization to bid the project. And with that, I would end my presentation and open it up to any questions. And I know Mark Hecker is here with Parks and Rec, and he could probably speak to some of the discussion with the improvements at the dog park. And I'm here as well. So thank you.
Fair enough. Thank you, Dave, for your presentation. What questions do commissioners have?
Commissioner Shipley, Dave, I want to be sure I heard you right. Any of the alternatives that we might dream up, we don't really have any way of knowing how the Army Corps would look on those. Did I hear that correctly?
Dave Cronin, City Engineer. Commissioner, that is correct. We had a meeting with a representative from the Corps prior to submitting the application. And for them to give us any indication or approval of what they would consider, we need to provide them with a plan. And so it's difficult. It's the challenge with working with them is you kind of got to produce a plan in enough detail for them to review thoroughly and give you some feedback. We do know that crossing that spillway is a critical issue with them, and that they would require us to have a surface that is erodible through that spillway if that spillway is ever needed in the future. So they will be certainly involved in the process as we move forward.
Commissioner Larson here. I just wanted to verify the cost that you're projecting for this. The reason it's a little bit higher than what was in our CIP, I think it was higher, is because of the addition of the multi-use path and the addition of that one road that's being connected to part of the soccer field area. Is that my understanding, Dave?
Dave Cronin, City Engineer. It's a combination of the whole project. I don't know if we originally considered the shared use path. We do have a 25% contingency in that estimate. But it's based off of our estimate and being conservative, we think that we need another $300,000 for design and construction.
Thank you, Dave. Commissioner Larson, again, another question that I have is, when I see the cost of $1.5 million for that road, it seems low to me, based on what I've seen from other costs of roads that we build within the city limits. So I was wondering if you could talk about that a little bit, about why that cost seems less than what I would anticipate from a street within the city limits.
So, Dave Cronin, City Engineer. We developed that cost estimate based off of constructing a road similar to the other roads out in the park, more of a road that you would see in the county. It is would have open ditches. There's no curb and gutter, nor no storm sewer that you would see on a similar city street. And we would reuse a lot of the asphalt millings that are out there for the base, and then overlay with asphalt. So I think it per linear foot would be a less expensive street than you would see us construct in a residential neighborhood.
Mr. Larson, thank you, Dave.
Commissioner, sorry.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Commissioner Larson, I just have one more question. Sorry, Dave. Sorry, Commission. So if we build across that spillway there, did I hear right that road has to be built such that if there is a need to use that for excess water, that the road could be easily washed away? Is that correct?
Dave Cronin, city engineer, that is correct. I think they kind of say it needs to be an erodible surface, which would be rock and not hard pavement.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Shipley, Dave, I want to be sure, because I've seen the application that you guys filed, I think you said in May. I was just concerned that if we change through our public engagement the scope or description of the project, how would that endanger the receipt of this grant?
Dave Cronin, city engineer. I think it would depend on how much I guess the proposal changed from what we submitted. I think we could look into the feasibility of pushing the road further to the north. And I really don't think that would impact us not getting the grant. I think the intent of the grant is to provide a secondary point of access. And so if we can do that on a different alignment that's better for everyone, then I think that would still achieve the goals of the project and the application.
Commissioner Larson, another question, Dave. So if we push that road to the north, would that increase the cost of the project?
Dave Cronin, city engineer. It could likely increase the cost of the project. It could lengthen the project, and so I would say that we did include some contingency in our estimate, but without looking into the details of what the alignment is and where it's going and what would need to be done. I don't have a number for any other alignment, but it could increase.
Thank you. Commissioner Larson, one more question, Dave. With the way it's drawn on the map right now, you have that road going basically splitting the dog park, which I find troublesome. That's for sure. Is there a possibility? We've got 100 acres out there for this park, or 120 acres for the dog park. Is there a possibility to reconfigure the park so that there's a buffer between a road and the actual dog park, like a big, wooded area that we could put between a road as in the main portion of the dog park?
Dave Cronin, city engineer. Let me share my screen here with the image again of this one. Let's see, share. So this was attached to the memo. It wasn't included in the presentation. Just to give everyone another view of the area. The proposed roadway alignment is up here really north of the existing dog park. Here's the existing parking lot off the end of 27th Street. And this is a really conceptual idea of improvements out at the dog park, which would include moving the parking lot off this access road to the south. At some point, increasing parking, and also the possibility of using fencing to have some delineation for the area of the dog park. So this whole area right now is 100 acres. And it would likely still be 100 acres after a road project. But, I think we could look at the feasibility to have more of a buffer, move the road further to the north. And that's something that we could look at as we're going through looking at different alternate options. And I guess, Mark Hecker, if you're on the line here, if you have anything else you'd like to mention about the dog park, I'll feel free to chime in.
Sure. Mark Hecker, Assistant Director with Parks and Rec. The plan you're looking at there is a conceptual plan that we just kind of came up with to begin a conversation with the dog park users. And the byproduct of this project has been we've really established a really nice advocate group with the dog park folks that we're able to talk to about needed improvements and what we might want to do going into the future with the dog park. So nothing on that plan is set in stone. It was just a begin a conversation. If we want to move a fence here, we want to move a fence there, we want to move the road, push the parking lot, move a restroom. That's all things we can talk about. And really, we're really early in that process. I'd like to understand what the users of the park are really interested in. And that's why we did that survey, so we can kind of understand what are the priorities and how can we start to angle our thoughts on future improvements of the dog park.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor Finkeldine. Dave, what is the latest guess, I guess would probably be the best way to ask you, latest guess on when we might see improvements on, the full lanes on K10 and improvements there at the intersection?
Dave Cronin, City Engineer. KDOT will be providing the commission an update, hopefully in November, on the status of the ongoing supplemental environmental impact statement for the K10 West Leg improvements to 4 lanes. But with their review of more substantial interim improvements at the intersection of K10 and Wakarusa, and with the 30% design plans that they are wrapping up, it's a potential project that could happen in 5 years. That's just, from discussing with them, that's kind of the earliest that could happen if they were to phase improvements to build a part or all of the interchange improvements at K10 and Wakarusa ahead of doing the whole K10 West Leg improvements all at once. So I think optimistically that would be the soonest that could happen. I would say that right now, I can only say this so many times, that there is no funding identified for improvements there on K10. So it may be a phased approach, and it may take a while. And I know it's a priority for KDOT. I know it's really a priority for the city as well. So still moving forward.
This is Commissioner Bowley. To what extent are the park amenities included in the funding for the road? And if there's some portion that's not included, is there a separate funding source that's been identified for that? Or is it in our budget?
Mark Hecker with Parks and Rec. I would say some of the items within the talked about improvements to the dog park are within our budget. So, you know, if we're putting a fence in or moving a parking lot, I think we can do that within our operating budget. And certainly that's why I wanted to start that conversation early, was to start to understand scope and then look at future budgets. And, you know, if we need to develop a CIP just for the dog park improvements, I want to propose that, you know, coming into next year's budget. But I think some of the items, or many of the items, can be done within our current operating budget.
Thank you, Mark. This is Commissioner Bowley again. So what I'm hearing is that the park amenities are not included in the road funding.
Correct. We view that as a separate project.
This is Mayor Nanda. Are there other questions, or we have several individuals signed up for a public comment on this item as well?
Mayor,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
sorry, you go ahead, Derek.
Derek Rogers, Director for Parks and Recreation. Just want to discuss a few things. If we can get to a consultant that engages the public, we've spent some time listening to the members of the users of the park. We've listened to all the users out there. What they like is the open country feel, and they're pretty much satisfied with the amenities are out there. So I think if we can get to the consultant and look at some different designs and what might be compromises and common ground, there, depending on the route that goes there, we may not need to do a new parking lot. Fencing where there's a safety need, absolutely. If there isn't a need, then it's been an open area for over 20 years and it seems to work. Those are my comments.
Mayor, Commissioner Shipley, thank you for that. Derek, that kind of segues me maybe a little bit into one of my questions. But I'd like to start that question with Chief Coffey. Thanks for being here, Chief. And I did see the meeting you all were at. Staff did a really nice job engaging with the public. Chief, you were talking about how the entrance there to the parking lot is kind of a choke point, and it just doesn't leave much room there for your equipment when you're getting in or turning around perhaps to get out. And I appreciate you bringing that up because that's actually what I had noticed taking my kid to play soccer, that the entrance there is really part of the problem. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Let's go unmuted. Sean Coffey, Fire Chief with the Fire Medical Department. Yeah, one of the things we advocate, obviously, from the fire medical standpoint is multiple accesses into facility if at all possible. Because in the event of an emergency or disaster, obviously, it's important to be able to get in, or multiple ways to get in depending upon the situation. One of the things that we noticed when we drove through the other day was that it always concerns me, and it's been a number of years since my children were out at YSC, but during that time, access of people going in and going out becomes quite congested in there, and ingress almost becomes as big an issue as egress. And just west of the intersection there of 27th and the bypass, there's this bridge there where it kind of chokes down the 2 lanes. And on a day that there's heavy congestion of traffic, that would be very difficult to get in there. And so we're just always looking for options that might identify multiple ways to get in and out of an area. What that may be, that's obviously up to the engineers and the designers, but it's something we have large apparatus and equipment that needs to get in and out. And so if we can have that access, we always advocate for that as much as possible.
Thank you, Chief. You had also mentioned, Commissioner Sipley, sorry. You're also kind of, you know, this is all a kind of an idea, a concept, but you were kind of conjecturing about even being able to enter from, if there was a 27th Street entrance on the further side. But how much longer would it take you if you had to come in that way to reach an emergency?
Well, currently that is the way we would access, if there's an emergency in the spillway area there or the Mutt Run area, we would access that area from Clinton Parkway over the dam and around that way into it. So it is a elongated time. And we would not use the road. There is a surface there. It's an unimproved surface right now. It's a kind of a rock road that is available. We can get on it if it necessitated. Probably could get a medic unit there if need be. Obviously, depending upon the weather, it'd be very difficult with a fire truck for sure. But there is a little bit of a route, but that exists currently. What we really don't have is that alternative access or egress, and that's always what we're advocating for if possible.
Commissioner Shipley, thank you again, Chief. Mayor, if you'll just give me one more question for Dave that kind of is in line with this questioning. In that bottleneck that Chief was talking about, I guess what I've wondered in the past is why not make that entrance have an entrance and an exit, since that seems to be part of the bottleneck in addition to people parking on the side of 27th. It seems like we own that property. We can kind of reconfigure it how we want. It could be cheaper. Was that in any way one of the ideas kicked around to help alleviate that choke point?
This is Dave Cronin, city engineer. Well, I think there might be a choke point with getting in and out of YSC to 27th Street, but the big choke point and bottleneck is the traffic signal at K10 and 27th Street. So that's the main cause of traffic queuing up. And as Chief Coffey was talking about, concerned about emergency access, that's where we're really concerned if we have a severe weather event and you got hundreds of people trying to leave at once. It can be really congested at the end of games when you've got an influx of people and outflux of people going in and out. But there's been times where we've had severe weather come through and you got softball folks and then all these ball field folks trying to leave all at once. And so that's the big concern from a safety standpoint, is being able to get in and out with the traffic signal there, because you're kind of stuck. And so that's the main bottleneck, I think, from a traffic perspective.
Samira and Nanda, any other questions before we go to public comment? All right. We have several individuals, so I will start at the top of the list and work my way down. First, we have Caitlin McDermott. Please go ahead, state your name, and you have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Caitlin McDermott. I live at 1000 Mississippi in Lawrence. I, like many people in Lawrence, am firmly opposed to the 27th Street expansion through the Mutt Run off-leash park. As I've stated before in my comments on this issue, the Mutt Run Park is a special place. It is unique to Lawrence. It is unique in its expansive size, its natural environment, its peace and quiet. I'll never forget when a dog park friend of mine sent me a picture of an out-of-state off-leash park, an abandoned tennis court with the nets removed. We knew we were blessed with our Mutt Run Park. This park is so much more than a dog park, especially now during the pandemic. The people who walk these beautiful trails with grasses and flowers and hay bales and love their dogs, love watching them run and experience the joy of it unrestrained. The people get so much out of this experience. We connect with one another, we check in with one another, we care about one another. We get sun on our faces and breezes in our hair and experience the silence and sounds of nature. For some of our citizens, this is their social activity of the day. This is the place where the most lonely and introverted can be checked on by strangers to make sure that they are okay. This park is a healing place. My dog Seymour came to us as an abandoned, abused 1-year-old. He crawled on his belly when passing strangers on his walk. He had no idea how to engage with other dogs. The Mutt Run Park gave him a space to learn that strangers weren't all bad and to learn how to play with other dogs. It also gave him a safe space to run, smell tons of natural smells, and climb those hay bales. He doesn't adjust well to change. He doesn't understand how cars are a danger. He still startles at loud or unfamiliar noises. The expansion of 27th Street, the act of the construction alone, would be terrifying for him and many of the dogs at the park. The resulting change of noise, cars, and barriers would be devastating to all of us, including the wild animals that live in that park. None of the thousands of city residents using this park want a road going through it or alongside of it. We don't want nature to be disturbed or our dogs and our kids to be in danger. There are a few places which are special in every community. This park is special. Please, please don't destroy this special place. Thank you.
Ms. Mayor Nanda, thank you. Next on our list is Carrie Smelding. Please go ahead, say your name and you have.
Hello, this is Carrie Snelding, Lawrence citizen and Mutt Run user. My dog Char was not socialized before she came into my life, and it has been a journey to get her used to people. But she absolutely loves dogs, and the Mutt Run has been a place for her to experience people in a safe way. If it weren't for this dog park, she would be afraid of the world. This community is very knowledgeable and accepting of dogs that have different social and physical needs, and Mutt Run gives them an opportunity to live life off leash. This park is just not about dogs. It is about people too. It is a sanctuary. It is a serene green space, and what makes this park unmistakably Lawrence. I am a graduate student at KU, and the pandemic has been some of my hardest academic months. I feel alone, and my mental health has wavered. The only normal part of my routine has been walking my dog at Mutt Run. It is the one place in Lawrence that is a safe escape during these times. While I was a Haskell student, you built the K-10 through my sanctuary, the Haskell Wetlands, and now I'm a graduate student at KU and found sanctuary at the Mutt Run, and now you're planning on building a road through that too. I'm closely connected to my family, and so is Char. She is connected to not only a few people, but we have not been able to see them. I'm grateful that this park has been open during this time. I was sad to see that the youth sports complex was closed and locked to citizens wanting to get outside and be active in a safe way. They were mowing it all the time, but they rarely did the same for the dog park. That made me feel like they didn't care about the dog park community. Not only have these been trying times, but today the dog park is still a sanctuary for my dog, but it is no longer a sanctuary for me because the 27th Street project looms over my head and heart. The only way I knew about this project was through a Lawrence Journal World newspaper clipping pinned to the bulletin board. I completely and absolutely oppose this road, and I think you should too. This road should not even be an option. If you put this road through the dog park, it will never be the same. The noise pollution and innumerable safety hazards will be weighing on our minds. My dog is unwelcome in so many places around town, and at the Mutt Run, she is welcome. But if you put a road through it, it will just be another unwelcoming space. I am disgusted at the lack of safety measures and planning for the dog park included in this project. My dog has high prey drive and will definitely be chasing vehicles and bikes along the potential fence, and likely can jump a fence that you plan on putting in. This worries me because she will no longer be part of my life if she is run over. Thank you for your time.
This is Mayor Nanda. Thank you, Carrie. Next on our list is Lynn Gimple. Please state your name and you have 3 minutes.
Hi, I'm Lynn Gimpel. When I lost my dog in the middle of the pandemic, I went to the Mutt Run without her because that's where the quiet, the solace, and the friendship was. I and the speakers following me are here to make it clear that we oppose hiring a designer for this project as long as a road through the Mutt Run is still being considered. because there is no way to extend 27th Street through the Mutt Run without permanently destroying the open green space that is so necessary to people, dogs, and wildlife. Let's just rename the Mutt Run the Mutt Sports Complex. We have a complex of trails, and free roaming with our dogs is our sport every bit as much as baseball and soccer is a sport for YSC users. Maybe that would put us on equal footing, except we don't have an alternative facility, and our complex is in use every day, all day, in every conceivable kind of weather. We're here because of the traffic in and out of YSC, but no one bothers to talk about the traffic pattern within the Mutt Run, which is too bad, because that pattern of perpetual unfettered movement is exactly what makes the Mutt Run unique and keeps us and our dogs safe. Freedom of movement prevents territorial issues. It provides multiple ways to avoid large groups of dogs, dogs in training, or frankly, dogs who ought to be better trained. The existing gravel road is the only place in Lawrence where seniors, pregnant women, disabled people, and parents with strollers can simulate a nature walk with their dogs off leash. In fact, 6 of the access points into the park run along the gravel road this project would eliminate. Can new pathways be plowed? Maybe, but not without taking down trees, urbanizing this beautiful open green space, and funneling us all into narrower walking patterns. If this project proceeds, assuming the Army Corps approves 1.5 miles of fencing through a wildlife corridor, the Mutt Run will become the Mutt Enclosure, and that will be the end of the open green space tranquility we so value. And according to the 2040 Comprehensive Master Plan, you are committed to preserve. We go to the Mutt Run to get away from traffic. The idea of permanently destroying it to provide a temporary solution to a traffic problem that occurs less than half the year is unconscionable. The Mutt Run is a refuge. It's a sanctuary. It should never be threatened. If anything, it should be officially protected. And so we, and by we, I mean over 1,340 of us, not several, are voicing a resounding no to any proposal, any design, or any agenda item that does not do exactly that. Thank you.
Mayor Nanda, thank you. Next on our list is Debbie Smith. Please state your name and you have 3 minutes.
Hi, this is Debbie Smith. Thank you for the opportunity to speak and for your serious consideration of our opposition to the 27th Street expansion through the Mutt Run. In addition to the devastation to the Mutt Run and its users, I believe this will result in unintended negative consequences. And if you allow, I have a visual aid. It's not quite as fancy as some of the others today, but I wanted to point out, let me change my view. The area, I didn't know how familiar you were with the area that we're talking about here. Let me get this in focus here. But the 27th Street expansion is bringing traffic through a wildly popular green space that's frequently used by 3 groups right now: pedestrians, bicyclists, and animals. And I think extending 27th Street poses a serious risk to all 3. You have pedestrians that park on either side of this road here. They park their cars, and this is a 2-lane road with a gravel shoulder. They park their cars so they can walk down to the lakefront or they can walk onto the dam. So you have cars parked on both sides and people walking. In addition to that, you have foot traffic that goes across that road that you're encouraging traffic through. Those people are trying to get out to Clinton Lake Trails or also just going out east to the Arboretum. You also have bicyclists. That Rock Chalk bike trail comes off Clinton Parkway, and the bicycle people go across the dam, and that's 900 East Road. They also go across 902 Road, and both are ways to get to and from East 1000 Road, which is a real popular bike road. So again, you have bicyclists going back and forth, and it's not just lone bicyclists, it's a group of bicyclists, and the only way to get around a group of bicyclists is to get into the oncoming lane of traffic. And these 2 roads they're traveling on, again, are 2-lane with no shoulder, especially the dam. So that's very dangerous. A third group that you have using this area is wildlife. You have wildlife that intersects the road here, notably, and here and here. What they're doing is they're either grazing on either side or they're migrating for shelter, food, and water. Another group that's at risk are the animals of Mutt Run. And why? The reason is, if this road goes through, it's proposed that we have to move the parking lot. The parking lot is right here, which is ideal because the parking lot, this is a dead end. The people coming down this road are coming to go to the Mutt Run. So it's people that have dogs, They're going there specifically for that. They're driving slow. They're looking out for dogs. And you might remember, Commissioner Larson, when you were out for that one meeting, dogs are running all over the place, just willy-nilly across the road to either side. This is just a big playground for them. If we move the parking lot over to here, where it's proposed, same thing's going to happen. You'll have dogs going willy-nilly across the road because they'll have the Mutt Run here and here. The problem with that is this is not a dead end. Well, actually it does dead end, but it dead ends down here. Fishermen come down that road to park here where the outlet spillway is, and they also come to park over here to fish at the waterfall. And then you have pedestrians that come down this road to park here to walk those stairs by the waterfall. Pardon me? Oh,
Mayor Nutter, your time is up. Deborah, are you about finished?
I am, yes, but I very much oppose this for the health risk reasons for those three groups. Thank you. Sorry I ran over.
Ms. Mayor Nutter, thank you very much. Next on our list is Jean Heitzman.
Yeah. Thank you, commissioners. My name is Jean Heitzman. I'm using Lynn Gimpel's computer. I've been a patron of the Mutt Run for the last 13 years and a volunteer coach with Parks and Rec Youth Sports for 30 years. I have watched and coached many games at YSC over the years, and I'd like to address the concern of slow traffic egress from those fields. We've been told that the reasons for building the 27th road extension through the Mutt Run are to provide easier access for Mutt Run users and quicker exiting from YSC. As far as Mutt Run users are concerned, we don't need, nor do we want, easier access. As far as exiting YSC quicker, I really don't understand why this is such a big concern. Traffic delays are just part of sporting events, from Allen Fieldhouse to high school stadiums to YSC. Parents always have options when it comes to exiting games quickly, and none of them involve building them another road. For one, they can do a better job of carpooling. I routinely see 3 or 4 cars of relatives watching one child play. They can pull their child from a game a few minutes early if they need to get to another game across town, or ask a teammate's parent to give their child a ride home. Personally, I like the option of visiting with parents and their child for about 10 minutes after each game. Traffic has usually died down by then. Before permanently destroying what we Mutt Runners think is the best park in Lawrence, to fix a problem that occurs sometimes on weekends for several months out of the year, could other options be considered? Could start times of games be staggered more? Could they increase the time on the traffic light at K10 and 27th on soccer mornings? Could they eliminate the left turn onto K10 when exiting YSC and make cars traveling west on K10 take Wakarusa Road to Clinton Parkway and access K10 from there? I test drove both routes several times and it only takes a couple more minutes via Wakarusa to Clinton Parkway. KDOT has also added right turn lanes to the K10 27th Street intersection, and I think that should help considerably. Could we try any or all of these options first and allow some time to see what effect they have on traffic flow before we build this road? I also think it'd be a good idea to look at other areas of Lawrence before building any additional fields, hopefully areas that already have more than one access point. Derek Rogers invited us to a Zoom meeting last Friday, and he did say they were considering East Lawrence if they were, if they should expand in the future. On a personal note, I adopted my rescue mutt Ruby about 4 years ago. To say she had anxiety-based aggression and other social issues at that time would be quite an understatement. Watching her now playfully running with other dogs puts a smile on my face. Her transformation has been truly remarkable, and that would not have been possible without her friends, both canine and human, in that big, beautiful dog park. Again, thank you for your time.
Mayor Nanda, thank you. Next on our list is Taylor Hall. Please go ahead, state your name, and you have 3 minutes.
Concern about the capital improvement plan scores. This project has high priority based on those scores. Reality. This project intends to address the sports complex during emergencies and at the dangerous 27th and K10 intersection. This project will not positively, and per the KDOT WSP.
This is Mayor Ananda. Taylor, we are losing you. I don't know if you can move to where you have a better connection and we'll pause your time.
Oh, sure, yeah. And I'll let you know when I'm back on.
This is Mayor, are you still there, Taylor? I will come back to Taylor at the end of public comment. And Taylor, if you can hear me, we'll just say your name again at the end, and you'll be able to give your public comment. Then we can try again. And I apologize. Next on our list is John Shelton. Please state your name, and you have 3 minutes.
My name is John Shelton, speaking as a Mutt Run advocate because my Brittany Spaniel exercises me 6 days a week at the dog park. Thank you for the time to comment on the proposed road project. I am concerned, as other speakers, for the impact this road will have on the dog park, but also what the associated costs that aren't part of the Kansas grant. Right now, my impression is that the Clinton Mutt Run is probably the most used space with the lowest maintenance costs in the park system. Maintenance consists of mowing several acres of open space and paths, occasionally spreading some dirt, gravel, and mulch, 4 trash cans, 1 light fixture, a water fountain, a water faucet, 2 poop bag dispensers, and a pit toilet you'd have to be desperate to use. None of us are asking for anything more, just not a paved road, mixed-use path, and fencing by the dog park, saving the wildlife, trees, and tranquility that we enjoy on our walks. Engineers are asking you for approval to begin the design process for the road, but are they upfront in letting you know the total cost to the city of this project? They have $1 million grant for the road that requires the city to contribute 25%. Will this fund the whole project? It's my understanding that some 1.5 to 2 miles of fencing will have to be installed to protect dogs and their owners. A new parking lot will have to be built. A new bathroom, new paths, and walk bridges will have to be constructed over a creek for getting to the eastern fields from the new parking. All of these things are not part of the grant, possibly costing the city $1 million or more for the road and the dog park. There are alternatives to building this street that would save the city hundreds of thousands of dollars to solve the problem of emergency exit from YSC in case of storms, such as installing remote controlled opening gates on each end of the existing gravel road. No alternatives have been considered. You're being asked to form an advisory committee and hire consultants only to build this road, nothing else. Although KDOT took the low-cost alternative to mitigating the danger of 27th Street SLT intersection, Parks and Rec is attempting to take the high-cost alternative to a problem that will be solved in a few years, either by construction of the western leg of the SLT or the extension of Wakarusa to the south. Because this project has been prioritized by Parks and Rec doesn't mean that it should be a priority for the city as a whole. During a time of great uncertainty, this project should be at the bottom of the needs list. Please reject this request. Thank you for your time.
This is Mayor Ananda. Thank you. Next on our list is Adrian Donovan. Please state your name and you have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Adrian Donovan, and I oppose the 27th Street Extension project as well. And today I would like to address some of the arguments the city has made for this road and why they just don't make any sense. The city argues that this road has been part of the plan for this space since 1996, and it was laid out in the 2003 Clinton Lake Master Plan. And therefore the realization of this road is 17 to 24 years in the making. Well, anyone who lived in Lawrence in 1996, like I did, knows that our city is much different than it was 24 years ago. The way these spaces are used is different. You know what else the 2003 Clinton Lake Master Plan calls for? It also calls for fully relocating the dog park to a much smaller space to the south to make way for this road. Is that what we'll be surprised with next? Moving the most used green space in all of Lawrence to make way for a road? The fact is, plans change all the time, they should. City improvement projects should be based on how spaces are used today and look to the future, not backwards. Another argument the city makes for this road is that it will reduce traffic going through the K10 and 27th Street intersection by providing a secondary entrance and exit to the youth sports complex. And this reduction in traffic will make the intersection more safe. You can read this in the PR 21-2407 CIP project detail report. But in the KDOT cost share grant application, the city writes that they want this road because it will provide more access to the dog park, golf course, and outlet park. More access meaning more traffic through that very same intersection. So which is it? Is the city trying to reduce traffic through the intersection or increase it? It seems to me that instead of having an argument for the necessity of the road, They're just trying to justify spending the money to build it. And that brings me to the staff's last argument, and maybe their most persuasive, which is that they should build this road because they've got the money. It doesn't matter that the need for the road is questionable, or that the process behind getting the money for this project lacked transparency, failed to engage the community, and didn't even include other city stakeholders like the Multimodal Transportation Committee. They've got this grant money and they want to spend it. Is this really the type of strategic planning and fiscal responsibility the City Commission wants to support? Spending over $1 million in a road that may not even be needed just because someone thought it was a good idea 24 years ago? Now look, 2020 has been a really challenging year, and that's putting it mildly. As a City Commission, you have had to figure out how to overcome insurmountable obstacles, problem solve through issues nobody has ever seen in a century. This does not have to be one of them. This project shouldn't even be on your radar. $1 million road to reduce idle and wait times for a select portion of community? Really? Right now? There's so many more pressing issues that you could be focused on, and so many needs that this money would be better spent on. So vote no to this project. Reallocate this money to better serve the wider community of Lawrence. Give the 1,350 people who have now signed the petition to stop this project some relief during this awful, awful year. Vote no to the road and save the Mutt Run. Thank you.
Ms. Mayor Nada, thank you, Adrian. Next on our list is Molly Head. Please state your name and you have 3 minutes. Molly, you may be on mute. I'm not seeing Molly Head on the participant list. Porter, do you have any information?
No, Mayor, I don't, and I don't see her on the list either, though.
Okay, I will call that name again toward the end of public comment. Next on the list is Paul Kirsting. Please state your name and you have 3 minutes. Paul, you may be on mute. And again, I don't see that name on our participant list. Porter, do you have any other information?
No, Mayor, I don't, and I don't see the name either.
Okay. We will move on to the next item on, or the next individual on our list. Dorothy Daly, please go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Thanks very much for hearing all of the opinions tonight. I wanted to add my voice to the opposition. I have been using Mutt Run pretty regularly since 2005. These are my dogs behind me. And so in thinking tonight, what I wanted to say to you all, I actually went back through some city documents and looked at what was in the petition that everybody signed, the 1,300 signatures. What were some of the sentiments that they wanted to share with you? And I found a lot that resonated with me. The descriptions of the dog park sounded, they are accurate. People describe the place as spectacular, beloved, a sanctuary, a beautiful space, a place to connect with nature, relaxing, tranquil. And this is 2020 language, right? Like nothing is relaxing anymore. A peaceful, natural area, phenomenal, a joyful space. Again, in 2020, I mean, that is superlative because 2020 is rough. And so the adjectives were really nice to look at as someone who uses the park pretty regularly. There was also a lot of opposition, and I wanted to really just pull out the positive. And I continued looking through the city documents and noticed that in the agenda packet for October 13th, there was a set of results from a consulting firm, Novak Consulting Group, that engaged 3,000 individuals in Lawrence to help the City Commission redevelop a strategic plan. And so I looked through some of that and I thought, here are 3,000 individuals that are really shaping how you think about the city. And I'd encourage you to recognize that in very short order in the pandemic, you have almost half of that number telling you something that they want to remain, they want unchanged. I'll add my voice to the opposition. This is a vital space. It's a unique space. Adding a fence to it will be detrimental, not just for the dogs and the dog owners, but the animals as well. And I think you're setting up conflict between users in Lawrence that doesn't need to be there. So I appreciate all of the work that Parks and Recs does. I appreciate the City Council for hearing the opposition tonight. And please, I urge you to take a stand and not approve any resources for this road, fencing, anything that you don't need to fix, Mutt Run. Thank you.
Mayor Nanda, thank you. Next on our list is Jason Pryor. Go ahead, you have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. I appreciate all the comments that have come before mine, and I'm going to take a little bit different approach. I am a board member for Sporting Caw Valley Youth Soccer, and I have three kids that play out at YSC. I'm also, my family also uses the Mutt Run Dog Park. We have 2 dogs, and we certainly see the value in both facilities. I think what's before you here tonight, Commissioners, is to authorize the engagement of a design services consultant to talk with the members of the public that have legitimate concerns on both sides, and to see whether there's a balance that can be struck among those interests. Obviously, from our standpoint, and from my standpoint as a board member, the safety of our members is really of paramount importance. And we've heard the issues. I don't need to belabor them. I certainly recognize the concerns that have been advocated here tonight. And I'm hopeful that you guys will allow for the public engagement and the various stakeholders that do have an interest, and in hopes that a balance can be struck in those interests. That's all I have. Thank you.
Mayor Nanda, thank you. Next on our list is Marcus Dudley. Please go ahead, you have 3 minutes.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Marcus Dudley, and I serve as the executive director, excuse me, the executive director for Sporting Caw Valley Soccer Association. I echo a lot of what Jason has just said. I didn't know I'd be speaking right behind him, but for those of you that don't know much about Sporting Caw Valley, we currently provide a wide range of soccer-related services to nearly 5,000 participants a year. We offer operations and services in Lawrence, Topeka, and Manhattan, but our core is here in Lawrence, and we serve over 1,000 member families from our Lawrence community. Well, I'm really here, to speak on behalf of our organization in support of moving forward and continuing these conversations. I've served in this role for now almost 10 years, a little over 10 years, and we have continually expressed our concerns, not only about the entrance point and exit point of Clinton Lakeview Sports Complex, but also about the overall capacity and the traffic within the complex. During that time period, I can tell
Mayor Ananda, Mr. Dudley has frozen. Give him a second. Sherry, have you paused his time?
Thing that I really
Oh.
want today is,
Mr. Dudley, you keep freezing.
did I stop?
You froze.
Hello?
Yep, there you are. You froze. And I think that Sherry paused your time. So if you want to continue, please feel
Yeah,
free.
that'd be great. I think one of the things, the sentiments that I really want to, echo is this is a safety issue for our kids right now. I've already heard Dave talk a little bit about, entry and exit points. If there was a weather situation, there have been weather situations. Tornadoes have gone to the south of us, and we had players out on that complex. We are really concerned about emergency services, if they're able to get in and get out if there was a major situation that occurred at our peak programming times. Those are legitimate concerns that we have, and we have had for nearly 10 survey to our members. Is that they have concerns about the safety of that complex. We hear it from our members. I hear it from my employees. I hear it from our volunteers. I hear it from the visitors who travel to Lawrence to participate in our tournaments. I mean, these are issues that are affecting our organization. I think one of the things that I also wanted to share is that, this problem already has and creates a lot of frustration and stress for our current members. More recently, I will tell you that we have seen an increase in parking lot altercations, parent to parent. And I know some of that is because people are tired of sitting in line for 30 minutes. They're late to their children's games, and they get out and they take it out on each other. That's not what we want this to be about. I've seen parents letting their kids out of the car while they're stuck in line and walking through traffic in order to try to get their kids to their games on time.
This Mayor nodded. Thank you, Mr. Dudley.
What's that?
Thank you. You had 3 minutes and your 3 minutes are up.
Thank you for the opportunity. We are in support of at least moving forward to continuing these conversations to find mutually beneficial, solutions for all of our constituents.
Thank you. Last on our list, before we go back to the ones that we missed, is Chris Flowers. Please go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, this is Chris Flowers. First, they talked about it being a 30-minute wait. So if we build the road through, will it be a 15-minute wait each way? And I want to say, what does that mean for the Mutt Run people? Right now, when the games are out, their traffic's not affected. If that road goes through, when the Mutt Run, like when the games are getting out, does that mean the Mutt Run people are now going to be stuck in line for 15 minutes? I don't think that's very fair. I mean, they're not participating in the games, yet they're going to get stuck up in that traffic when we open up that road. And let's see, why not just a right turn only during games? Like I know it would definitely inconvenience some of the people that need to go left, but you've done it other places where there's a safety concern. I think on 27th at some point out in the county, they made it like a right turn only, and people who lived out there and wanted to go other ways from right, they were screwed. So why not in this situation? If it's all about safety, that would get traffic through quicker, and it would make things safer. It would just be a major inconvenience for the parents who need to go left. But that would be a solution that would not affect the Mutt Run people who aren't taking part in the games. And I like the point the earlier speaker made about staggering times, and what about parents carpooling? What exactly has the youth sports complex asked of its users to try to reduce the problem? Have they done anything like asking any of their users to do any of this stuff. Like, what have they done to try to reduce the problem? And also, I'd like to ask if it's also about the parents have concerns. Where are the parents at tonight? Like, there's a whole bunch of support from the Mutt Run people, but there's hardly any. I mean, we've heard from the sports complex people, but what about the parents using it? It just seems kind of strange that the parents are, we don't hear much from the parents yet. There's a whole lot of support from the Mutt Run people. And I want to talk about stakeholders. What about the taxpayers? I mean, I don't own a dog and I don't have a kid, so I'm just a taxpayer, and I'm with the Mutt Run people 100% on this. I don't think this is something that's really needed, and I think it's going to do more harm to the Mutt Run people. So thank you.
Mayor Nanda, thank you. Sherry, is there anyone present in chambers to give public comment on this item?
No, Mayor.
Ms. Mayor Nanda, thank you. So we will go back to the three individuals that we missed on the list. Taylor Hall, do you want to try again? You have 3 minutes.
Yeah, hi, I'm back, Taylor Hall, and this project will not positively affect the 27th and K10 intersection per the KDOT WSP intersection study. Also, the gravel path that this road seeks to replace already functions as an emergency exit, but it also functions as a walkway for those with physical mobility issues. The road will get rid of 60% of low mobility access pathways in the Mutt Run Park. This is not reflective in the equity portion of the CIP scoring. The lack of public involvement from the beginning does not align with the city's goals for collaborative planning in the 2040 comprehensive plan. These have felt like just lofty words for the city to appease those it wishes to push over, or better yet, pave over. True collaborative planning does not start at the design phase. Therefore, hiring engineering designers to conduct public engagement is not the right step. The step does not consider alternatives to a road. It only considers alternative routes. Really, there is only one alternative route, and that's through the spillway. But this is highly frowned upon by the Army Corps of Engineers. Yes, this project has support from the Youth Sports Complex and Friends of the Lawrence Area Trails and Livewell Douglas County, though that one has become shaky. Yet it does not have support from the Mutt Run. The park this road will go through, partially destroy, and during construction disrupt. When you hear 1,300 plus community members, not several, voicing their opposition, I think it's time to listen. We do not want this road, yet it is being pushed through under the veil of a design consultant who might solve the problem of opposition. This staff item report states that this project has not gone well so far, and I believe it's because it's a bad project. This project has serious issues within the CIP scores, and commissioners, I urge you to oppose this project along with the 1,300 plus citizens who do as well. Thank you so much for your time.
Ms. Mayor Nanda, thank you. Glad you were able to get connected in. Next is Molly Head. Is Molly here? Okay. And Paul Kirsting. Okay, that was the last name on our list. So at this point, we will bring it back up to the commission for discussion. Who wants to start?
This is Vice Mayor Finkel. I have a couple questions I think that have come up as I've listened to these presentations. Maybe this one's for you, Dave. Some talk about an alternative route being to the north. When you say that, given the topography and the spillway, what do you mean about to the north? Like 50 feet to the north, or all the way through the spillway along the current route and keeping completely away? When you say that, what are you envisioning as possible realistic avenues to the north?
Dave Cronin, city engineer. I don't have a specific alignment or distance to the north. I think there is possibility to have more of a buffer than using the current alignment that was shown. I know there's been some question regarding the ability to just put the alignment through the spillway. I think that I would say is would be very difficult and not feasible. It has been pointed out to me by someone that there's a road in the spillway at Pomona Lake, so I guess nothing's out of the question. But you know, that's what we really need to look at with design, and so I don't want to say one thing's in or out at this point. So we would look at whatever feasible options there are, given the topography, given the requirements of the Army Corps of Engineers, you know, within the area that's out there. But I do think by walking through there that there is some ability to provide more of a buffer. It would require probably some more grading and removing of some trees, but that would be something we would look at with the different concepts.
Vice Mayor Finkelstein, Dave, can you possibly show me what you're meaning about buffer, like on your map or something? I mean, I guess as you pull that up, I mean, no one mentioned it tonight, but someone in the many documents we received mentioned, I mean, for an example, you know, building a road along the shared use path all the way through the spillway, all the way north, all the way around. I mean, that is a northerly option, and it doesn't come anywhere close to the Mutt Run. But I'm not sure that's a realistic option, I guess, as I'm asking. And then when you say a little bit of buffer, I don't know what you mean by that.
Unmute, okay. Dave Cronin, city engineer, shared the screen here with the map. Zoom in a little bit. There is a possibility that we could take the road up in here through this area. Here's the spillway is right here, up on this side of the spillway on the south side, up to here to connect to I don't know what road this is, but I think it leads to Sesquicentennial Point. And so that has been, you know, something that has been thrown out that we could look at, or anything in between, I would say. Again, I think it would be challenging to go through the spillway, and that would be a long road, and I could see some concerns with putting a road next to that, our shared use path through there. But again, I think that's, you know, something that we would, I guess, really start from scratch when we say, hey, we want to connect point A to point B. What are the possible alignments? What are the benefits? What are the drawbacks of each one? And what would be the, you know, I guess the best for the community at large. So I don't want to exclude anything at this point before we even start. So, but I think there is some opportunity in this area, and I don't have a scale on here to provide you a distance, but that we could create more of a buffer than just along the north edge of the dog park.
Vice Mayor Finkelstein, thank you for that. That helps. I guess a different question. Obviously, one of the concerns brought up is kind of this concern of, you just mentioned, having a consultant help look at paths from A to B. How do you envision this consultant considering the option of no road at all? and how do they factor that into their work?
Dave Cronin, city engineer. Well, I think that certainly is an option. No build is an option. And it's, I think this would be a combination, this consultant services would be a combination of someone that has some, or a combination of consultants that has public engagement experience that could help focus on, identifying what all the concerns are. And then have a combination with having a designer that could draw some lines and provide some cost estimates, and has experience working with the Army Corps of Engineers. So that's I think the way I see it going is that we get together and say, well, what are the pros and cons of alternate alignments? What are the concerns? What alleviates the concerns? We've talked a lot about the Mutt Run Dog Park, but I've heard concerns. And I think one of the speakers brought it up regarding the cyclists that use the dam road. A lot of folks that are biking out into the county that no longer can use Castle to get out into the county to cross K10 at Castle. Now go down, use the Lawrence Loop over the E900 road and go south. And so there's some concern there with the potential increase of traffic on E902 road with cyclists that are on the road. What alignment, what impacts them as well. Of course, anything that would have additional traffic on the dam road could impact them. But certainly an alignment along the spillway would probably not be favorable to them as well. So, again, there's, I guess, a lot of stakeholders involved that have different viewpoints here. And I think that we would want the public engagement professional to, identify the different alignments, and then, also consider, what happens if we don't build the road? What's the pros and cons of not building this? Obviously, I think we have expressed the concern regarding safety, but that not building the road is still an option at this point.
Vice Mayor Finkel, I appreciate that. And one of my, I guess, thoughts would be that the consultant in a vacuum would also consider, in a vacuum would consider, well, how do we address the traffic concerns of YSC? But I guess that 27th and K10 intersection has been studied immensely by all sorts of engineers. I assume there's no thought at trying to think up new ways to get people out of that park. There's a few mentioned tonight about ride only and other things. Would that be part of this service, to look at other ways to address traffic if it was decided this road was not going to be built? Would that be part of this contract?
Dave Cronin, city engineer. That would not be part of the contract, Commissioner. We've, with the intersection study that KDOT did, they really looked at any and all options for the intersection there, and they're really including almost all of them with this in the low cost improvements with turn lanes and changing the access restrictions on the north side of the intersection to improve safety the best that they can. They're also going to be installing a queue detection system, warning system. So as traffic is queuing back, and it can queue back half a mile or more on K10 at the signal, that there'll be a warning system for people as they approach the intersection that traffic's backed up, to help alleviate some of the rear end crashes. So they really have looked at almost every option. And even with the study on mid to longer term improvements, any option at the intersection, they even looked at roundabouts on the highway. they looked at any and all options with their study, and really I think that they're proceeding with looking at having a grade separated intersection there as soon as they can. And in the interim, this secondary access point would be the next best beneficial project for congestion at the complex. And I would also say that even with the project, if we go forward with extending this road, I would still see a majority of traffic entering and exiting the complex using K10 and 27th Street. I think it would just be during really peak usage of the complex where folks would have an alternate way out. So I would still see the majority of traffic that goes to the complex using K10 and 27th Street. But really that emergency factor and peak usage, I think, would be where you see the need to have this road.
Vice Mayor Fickle, thank you. Two more questions, not meaning to hog the time here, but you said, when I asked earlier, you said optimistically the soonest we could probably get the separation there at 27 and Wakarusa from KDOT would be 5 years from now. Optimistically, if we hired a consultant, went through the process, were able somehow to agree on a route, and then built that road, what's optimistically as fast as we could get that done? A year from now?
Dave Cronin, city engineer. The schedule that we proposed in our application, that we designed the project next year, 2021. I think we had a letting in December and construction winter and into spring of 2022. So it would be completed before, I guess, peak usage in 2022. Spring of 2022 would be my estimate. So about a year and a half from now.
Okay, Vice Mayor Fickle, I thank you. No further questions.
This is Mayor Ananda, kind of piggybacking on that conversation. I wanted to ask if there has been any kind of study done on the impact, particularly of pedestrian safety. I regularly have used the Mutt Run until my puppos got too big and scary to the little ones there. And there are frequently bicyclists, pedestrians, over by the dam crossing, and particularly on weekends, folks are out there. And I know, we heard one commenter talk about parents who clearly have anger issues because, you don't take out your frustration on another human being in that way unless you have an issue. How that could be impacting those pedestrians. So if we have heightened emotion individuals who are going through that space where there are more pedestrians versus waiting in a car in traffic and the safety issues and the impact of that. Has there been any study done?
Dave Cronin, city engineer. No, we have not done a study on the pedestrian safety with the dog park.
Is that something, and it wouldn't be necessarily just the dog park. I think it would be folks accessing the dam area or the paths there. There are more pedestrians in those areas than I would say if there was a fence at the dog park, for example. And that's notwithstanding, it seems like the potential danger posed by that safety, accidents were mentioned, is the danger posed by increased traffic in that space, particularly on high use times and areas, more negative than folks waiting in their cars. And would a study like that be done if that were to be considered?
Dave Cronin, city engineer. We at this point haven't considered a study of pedestrian usage, but I think it would be tough to predict what the potential is of crashes. I know there's would potential you'd have conflicts out there, and it might be part of the discussion where, you know, we've shown that shared use path that extends to Mutt Run Dog Park, maybe extending that to have a pedestrian path all the way out to the lower dam road. So that there would be an added cost to that, but I think that would be something that, you know, if that is a concern and that's something that we hear, and I guess I'm already hearing it now, that would be something that we would want to think about extending that shared use path or a sidewalk or something to have some separation between pedestrians and vehicles.
This is Mayor Nanda. That would be something that would be important to me if we're talking about increasing safety, or we're talking about increasing convenience to a decrease in safety for other folks. That would not meet our end by any means, and would be pretty seriously dangerous potentially.
Commissioner Shipley. Dave, just a kind of a process question, and I appreciate that you guys have pumped the brakes on this. I wonder why you would like to do the public engagement before multimodal looking at it. And I guess I'm wondering that because it seems like multimodal could narrow down, because right now we're saying, I hear you saying we're not taking anything off the table, anything's possible. And I know sometimes in the past, those projects veer in strange ways because there isn't a narrowed focus. So I just feel like I kind of thought multimodal, especially since they do a good job of focusing on access, why not let them look at it first and narrow the scope, and then have them look at the RFP, or give whoever's going to do the study more specific direction.
Dave Cronin, city engineer. We have considered having some multimodal members be part of the steering committee, but as far as their comfort level or experience in determining the scope, I don't know if that's really in their purview. I think what we need to do is at first just listen to everyone's concerns, and then try to develop ideas and strategies to mitigate those. And I think that really conversation needs to happen with all of the stakeholders, and including a couple multimodal transportation commissioners that are generally familiar with the project, and then we've kind of briefed them on what the project is, and in addition, the Parks and Rec Advisory Board, because you know, as this was mentioned, this road is on the Clinton Lake Parks Master Plan. It has been on there for a while, and it's been a long time, and again, plans can change. So I think having them on the steering committee is important as well. So that's kind of the thought behind the public engagement process and the steering committee.
Commissioner Larson here. So I've had the opportunity to attend the meetings that have occurred out at the Mutt Run Park, and listen to numerous people one-on-one about the situation and their concerns, and looking at that first map that was drawn up, or the map that was drawn up, you know, I totally concur with their concerns regarding safety, and the fact that is, as it's drawn right now, and I understand it's just a concept, however, it would split the park up, which I find very concerning. So you know, as we move forward, if we move forward with this, you know, I'm going to have big concerns about having a road go through that close to the park without some sort of significant safety buffer or something. If that means bringing it through the spillway or up along the edge, then I'm definitely interested in seeing that type of option and looked at very diligently. So, I'll just say, I hear their concerns and I think they've got some valid points, and we need to make sure that that's listened to and we take that into strong consideration if we move forward on this.
Commissioner Bowley, I appreciate the comments that we've heard tonight, and don't really have much to add other than that this is an interesting way for me to spend my dog's adoptiversary. Willis came to us 6 years ago today from the Lawrence Humane Society. So, I appreciate that, dog owners are very attached to the experience that they have at the Mutt Run. And as a parent of kids who also played soccer out at YSC, I understand that there are interests that are legitimate with those folks as well. So I'm really hopeful that we'll have good conversation and everybody will have a chance to get heard.
Mayor Commissioner Shipley, I wonder, Commissioner Bowley, I wonder if you would talk with me a little bit. One of my concerns is that, this kind of got weighted in the CIP at some point because it would get grant money. So that would have boosted its scores a little bit. And I do hear the point that this might be spending money on a problem that's actually half a mile away. How do you feel about potentially spending money that we could use on something else for a problem that might be addressed much cheaper and much simpler?
I'm open to not spending money. This is Commissioner Bowley. I think that it's important to consider that this project was covered in the 2016, 2017 update of the Parks and Rec Master Plan. Now, I'll be the first one to say I've had serious differences with how that plan was done and put forward, but I must admit that this project was in that plan, and that plan had significant public outreach. So, this has also been in our CIP. So, as I say, I'm open to not spending money, but our conversation tonight is not about whether or not to spend money. Our conversation tonight is about whether to have a conversation with the assistance of a consultant, or at least that's my understanding of the issue before us tonight. And I'm open to be corrected on that.
Commissioner Shipley, you are right, but the reason I ask is it seems like the opening question is, how do we make the 27th Street intersection at K10 safer? And that became a conversation way over here. And I hear staff saying that they think the addition of this road is, or some form of this road is inevitable. And I'm not convinced of that. So that was why I was asking about the process, about rethinking priorities, and there's other things besides just the money in terms of our changing priorities.
Yeah, this is Commissioner Bowley. I heard tonight that no build is an option.
Commissioner Shipley, I heard Brad ask Dave, what about only looking at 27th Street change alternatives? And I believe I heard Dave say not an option. Dave, want to come back to me with that?
Dave Cronin, city engineer, can you clarify the question for me?
So I think what Brad had asked you was, is it possible that we could solve this problem only at the 27th Street intersection without venturing off into new roads? And I heard you saying that was not an option.
Dave Cronin, city engineer. I don't think we can do further improvements at the signalized intersection to improve congestion and safety other than what we have done. And that still would not alleviate the concern we have during emergency events and having a secondary access point. Would still only have one access point no matter what we do at that intersection here in the short term.
This is Mayor Nanda. If a traffic study was done of that potential road, which I think is a pretty common thing that we do, and it's found that it would be less safe for pedestrians than it is less safe for vehicular traffic, even with the wait times, is that still something that we would talk about as an inevitability in this process?
Dave Cronin, city engineer. Sometimes it would, I think it would be hard to define the safety measure of pedestrian conflicts with the road. I think sometimes it's easier to do when you have with vehicles with crash history, like you can at an intersection. That if you do this treatment, you're predicted this, that fewer crashes. We don't see a lot of crashes with pedestrians. They do occur, but a lot of it's perception of safety. And so that would be hard to define in a study. I think generally speaking, if we hear that there are a lot of users, of pedestrian users out, let's just say west of the Mutt Run Dog Park around the spillway, and there's no sidewalk there, then it would be important to consider including a sidewalk in the project or a path in the project. So I don't see the I don't really see the benefit of a study just to determine the possibility of pedestrian safety with the road extension, but I think it needs to be included in the discussion, and that we should look to mitigate that with the improvements, like I mentioned, extending the shared use path, if that's a concern. If there's pedestrians that would be using the area west of the dog park or at the adjacent to Mutt Run. So I hope that answers your question. I'd just be concerned about just saying, yeah, we're going to study it and just keep studying it. And I think it'd be hard to quantify, the concerns. But I think I've heard, the concern, and I think we need to address it somehow in this, going forward. That identify if there's improvements that can be made to mitigate the concern.
This is Mayor Nanda. Yeah, I mean, I'm not comfortable with that. I feel like there should be some way to quantify, looking at cars parked on the side of the road with the driver's door facing the road, people getting out with coolers, going to have a picnic down by the lake. There are always at least 3 or 4 cars parked there, and folks crossing the road from the lake side to the other side on bicycles and walking. And I just feel like there has to be some kind of way to quantify that and the estimated increase in traffic and the potential danger that poses versus, the very experiential data that we have based on that intersection. I'm not comfortable without some kind of model to have an understanding of that, because I would be loath to create it, or even, you know, looking at the cost of fencing, the height of fencing needed. Some dogs are jumpers. So even if that were to be an option, what that risk is, I wouldn't be comfortable moving forward without that kind of information.
Dave Cronin, city engineer, I understand that. And I think what we could do is, you know, with a study, get some pedestrian counts out there, observe the part, you know, how folks use the other roads out there, and parking. You mentioned parking, and I think that hasn't come up before that I've heard, but you know, folks that park maybe alongside the road, whether it's 900 or 902 or the spillway road. And so, you know, we've talked a lot about different stakeholders. There's folks that go and, you know, park over there to go fishing in the spillway. And so, no, I think that's a good point. I think, you know, just thinking about it a little more, that we could try to get some counts of pedestrian users out there, and see how parking is getting used, and try to incorporate those facts into what we propose or could include with the roadway extension project.
Ms. Marinado, I appreciate that very much.
Commissioner Larson, I just want to step back a little bit and talk about Commissioner Shipley and Commissioner Bowley's conversation regarding the no build option. So that's my understanding is when Dave said, I think towards the beginning, that there's nothing left off the table as far as options go. So no build has to be one of those options. And it's one that I would definitely consider, depending on what staff comes back with. So I just, again, want to clarify one more time that is truly an option. Is that not correct, Dave?
Dave Cronin, city engineer, that is an option, and that would be, you know, ultimately it'd be your decision. You know, we could bring back a option for an alignment, and you could say no, and we would not proceed with the project. So we're not committing at all tonight to the project. We wouldn't be committing to building the project even when we begin the public engagement. Once we complete that process, we could not proceed with final design plans, and it would end there and not build the project. So
thank you, Dave. Commissioner Larson again. And so generally what we see when staff is looking at a project going into the preliminary design phases is they come up with several options. And this being a similar type of situation where you'll come up with some options.
Dave Cronin, city engineer, I do. Multiple options, minimum 2, probably at least 3. Really, and again, I think there's options. There's a lot more than 3 options, but then there's really what is feasible. You know, you know, people can say, yeah, we can take it down the dam, or you can go south and cross the Wakarusa River. Yeah, you could do a lot of things to have a secondary access point, but what's really feasible? And so I could see minimum of 2 feasible options, if not more, including the one that we've shown.
Vice Mayor Finkelstein, following up on that, I mean, I guess that's kind of my questions I was asking earlier. I mean, given the public comment we've received, not only tonight, but in writing, I can't see how you'd ever have any support, any strong support, or any certainly no consensus to build 27th on the current road, the current, you know, gravel road. I think there might be a chance to discuss no build versus going somewhere to the north. But it sounds like there's probably only one option going to the north, or some variation of going to the north, I guess. I mean, if we said you can study this, but we're not going to approve a road down 27th Street as it currently exists, or down that gravel path, but go ahead and look at other options, Is that something you would still support going forward with, or without? Or do you think it's more of a no build versus that option down the current gravel path?
Dave Cronin, city engineer. You could certainly direct us not to look at a specific option, but I think we're trying to start from scratch and say, well, what are the options out there? And, I think that could still be an option if you just want to say, no, let's not look at it, scratch it. It's either something different or no build, then we could proceed with that direction at this point. We're just trying to, again, not exclude or anything at this point, because really we haven't had some of the conversations with the Army Corps of what's possible out there on their parkland that we lease from them. So,
Guys, Mayor Finkel, I guess like, part of my concern is spending money on a consultant. I can tell you I can tell you what they're going to hear about building along the gravel path. We've heard it for 5 or 6 hours tonight. There's not going to be support from the Mutt Run people to build along the gravel path, and there's no. That's my impression, that there's nothing the consultant's going to be able to do to convince the Mutt Run people that building along that path is going to be worth anything. That they're going to support it. So either we're going to come back with a no build option, we're going to come back with an option somewhere to the north, or we're going to come back with an option on 27th Street over the opposition of the Mutt Run people, and we'll be back here having the same conversation, but having spent $100,000 in study or $50,000 in study. I guess that's my concern. I don't know if you have a reaction to that. That might be more of a comment than a question, Dave. So,
This Commissioner Foley, I guess I'll react to that.
Yeah.
I think, the interest here is to take what we've learned and go forward, but not to preclude the people who are going to be doing the advisory group from talking about stuff. I don't see the point of saying, well, don't talk about this, don't talk about that. Let them talk. That's my point.
Commissioner Shipley, I appreciate that, Commissioner Bowley. My concern is that if nothing can be taken off the table, if we can't promise that as an option or guarantee that as an option, then we're just paying lip service to hearing from the public. We're just saying, okay, we'll let you talk, but ultimately we're still going to build this road. And I don't think that's what we want from our engagement. It degrades trust. And I hear that mistrust in the people we heard from this evening. And, I hate to say it, but 19th Street, there was an option guaranteed when we were looking at 19th Street. And Commissioner Larson had to come and remind us that one of those options was left off, even though it was directed specifically to be designed. So I feel like this is an opportunity to create trust and just paying lip service or saying this is engagement because we invited you to a meeting. I'm not sure that's what this group is going to want to hear.
This Commissioner Bowley, I'm sorry if I've indicated that having a continued conversation makes a road inevitable. I don't see it that way, and I didn't communicate that. This commission or subsequent commissions will decide whether or not there's a road that goes in there. or whether we do a no build. And we will be listening to the public as we do this. So I don't see that having a continued conversation provides inevitability for a road.
Commissioner Larson, Commissioner Shipley, and I appreciate you bringing up 19th Street, because that was a project that had strong engagement from the neighborhoods all along 19th Street, which I really appreciated and listened to for, I don't know, maybe a couple of years, and to hear their point of view. And one thing that resulted from that is that we were able to come up with a road design, I believe, that had much broader support, probably not complete support, but broader support from the neighborhoods, that it at least they were able to get some sort of compromise on it. We, instead of a 40-foot some odd foot wide street, we came up with a 26 or 27 foot wide street, which seemed to help alleviate some of their concerns. So I think the public engagement part is extremely important, because it does give us an opportunity to broadly listen to everybody's concerns and maybe come up with a plan that's actually going to, provide some level of compromise and works for a larger body of people. And so that's why I really appreciate the ability to engage with the public, go to the meetings and listen to them one-on-one, their concerns, because it's an opportunity for me anyway to maybe try to bring some parties together and find a way that a path that works for the largest group of people we can for our community. So I really appreciate the opportunity to have that public engagement.
This is Mayor Ananda. I don't know that I'm hearing us having reached much of a consensus on this request for qualifications for public engagement and design services. I wonder if the kind of things that we are talking about as far as the scope of that is something that we are being asked to decide this evening.
Dave Cronin, city engineer. We're not getting into specifics on the scope or asking for specifics on the scope, but if there are specifics or direction you would like to give us to include, we're certainly here to get that feedback.
This is Mayor Ananda. I mean, I think that I'm hearing some consensus around the public comment that we've been receiving and received this evening as well, that there is a need for dialogue and there is a strong preference for finding an alternative route or not engaging in this project or engaging it differently. And so there is perhaps an emphasis on looking at all options, not just road-based options, and the impact of those. Would anybody disagree with that or have some clarification on that around the commission discussion?
Commissioner Shipley, I might ask you just to clarify that, but I appreciate you saying that. When I was listening to multimodal, a couple people did ask on the multimodal commission why all of the solutions to our problems is always to build another road. And I think that's an important question because we do spend a lot of time thinking about how we're going to reduce driving, how to discourage driving, how to make public transportation more available. And I'm also grateful to I think her name was Jean, that brought up, 3 people from one family might go out there if there's 3 cars. And I've seen that. In fact, I've done it myself. So why didn't we ask ourselves, well, how do we discourage people from driving, or how do we use public transportation? We didn't ask ourselves that. We just went straight to build another road. And as much time as we spent putting green space in our Plan 2040, it is surprising to me that our first solution was to build another road. It's also surprising to me because we spend a lot of time talking about how we know we can't pay to replace a road 30 years later. And this road would be entirely our responsibility in terms of replacement. There's not homeowners living next door. So I just feel like there's a lot of things that weren't looked at in a comprehensive way. And I think there's some easier, cheaper solutions that I would have liked to have seen explored before we jumped straight to build a new road, including, see how some of the changes that have already been made will affect it. We don't really know. They're not complete. They might make a big difference. So that's kind of where I'm at.
This is Mayor Nonder. Commissioner Shipley, can I clarify? So you're requesting what?
Maybe that's what I'm asking you. So your statement was, what was your statement?
This is Mayor Nonder. So essentially what I'm hearing is that commissioners are broadly feeling like this is continued discussion is important on this issue, and that there is an opportunity for dialogue amongst varying individuals and groups involved in this issue and who will be impacted by this issue. Some of whom haven't been named and might be relevant to that discussion, and wanting to have all options on the table in that dialogue. That was what I was hearing, but I don't think that's what I heard reflected back in your comments.
No, Mayor, I don't think that's what I meant either, and I may be alone, but I definitely want to say that it would seem odd to waste money on a study only to say we don't want to build something. What is it, $100 something thousand for a study?
Vice Mayor Finkeldine, let me try this another way. Maybe, I mean, obviously the option before us is a request for qualifications for public engagement and design services and the approval of a steering committee. I mean, I certainly understand what Commissioner Bowley and Commissioner Lawson are saying, that and I agree, I'm not opposed to having discussions and public engagement, certainly, and considering options. Dave, can we separate that from design services so that, we first have the discussion about general concepts, and, I don't want to enter into a contract with a design consultant if we come back with a no build so that there's nothing for them to design. Is this a two-part process where we could do public engagement, have a decision on that, and then decide about design after that?
Dave Cronin, city engineer. Commissioner Finkeldine, that's exactly what we're proposing to do, is to have a two-step process with community engagement as the first step, and that would have a cost to it, and then a design process. So we wouldn't do any full design until we look at different concepts and options and decide if we're going to proceed with the project. We will need some engineering design to go along with that first step community engagement process, just to determine feasibility, get some survey information, topography of the area to develop some preliminary concepts, but nothing with a detailed design. I guess the one thing that I keep thinking about in the back of my mind is the Corps of Engineers and what all they're going to require. They do need to see something to approve uh, an alignment. So we'll need to work with them to see what level of detail they need. But our intention going into this is really a two-step process, and not doing design until we have the engagement.
This is Commissioner Bowley. Would a consultant contract come back to us for approval?
Dave Cronin, city engineer, yes.
Good.
This is Commissioner Bowley. So our decision tonight is not whether or not to engage a consultant. It's only to ask for qualifications and put together an advisory group. And there's definitely nothing inevitable about building a road out of those two steps, in my opinion.
Vice Mayor Finkeldye, I certainly, obviously, Commissioner Bully has mentioned this before. We know there's some pretty agreeable facts that the traffic at YSC is very bad, and a solution would be good, and that the Mutt Run people will not be happy with anything that changes the condition. Is there a way we can work on all of those together? Maybe. And I guess, staff is asking us to put together a steering committee and a consultant to help us see if we can get there. If it sounds like at least Commissioner Bowley and Commissioner Lawson are in favor of that. I guess I can support that. I really want it to be a two-step process because I'm dubious that we'll get past a no-build option, and I don't, and I want, and you guys have said this a million times, I want the Mutt Run people to know that's a real option as part of this, and it certainly is, but I don't want to get to a point where we spend a lot of money only to find out that we haven't made progress. So, I'd go ahead and vote yes to support this step, but I think we want to make sure that request for qualifications is set up properly so we don't expend too much money on step one.
Commissioner Larson, I concur with that, Vice Mayor. Definitely would want to see that broken out to the extent possible. I realize you've got to have some design just to show concepts, if nothing else, and also requirements of the Corps. But it needs to be that two-step process so we don't get into it so far that we've spent more money than is necessary if we can't come up with some level of compromise on what's going to happen here.
This is Mayor Ananda. Dave, if that were to be a motion and pass, would that be sufficient direction for you as you're drafting that request for qualifications?
Yeah, Dave Cronin, city engineer. I think so. I almost would want to put it in our request for solicit these proposals to watch this meeting. For anyone putting together their proposal, I hope they do that. Maybe I'll just say that. But kind of kidding aside, but no, I think we have enough direction, and I'd really like those submitting the proposals to say what would their process be, and we would, what do they see the process being for identifying the different alternatives and what their experience is in a project similar to this. There's no two projects that are identical, but we're looking for qualifications of consultants that have maybe worked on a similar project with stakeholders and tried to find a compromise, and and we would bring back a detailed scope and fee for that first step process. And I think we would also ask them to put together a preliminary fee for the second step if we go that direction, but we will not proceed to the second step of final design without getting direction from the city commission. But I think we would get an estimate on the full cost, of full detailed cost of what the community engagement process is and the design, and broken out into where are they expending their time, and then we could have a conversation on what we want to include or not include in the proposed scope that we bring forward.
Ms. Mayor Nanda, thanks, Dave. Vice Mayor, do you want to make a motion? The answer can be no.
Vice Mayor Finkel, aye. Yeah, I think we can make the motion that's here before us, and I think we've given direction for what we want to see when it comes back to us. So I would just, Vice Mayor Finkel, I'd make a motion to authorize staff to issue a request for qualifications for public engagement and design services for PR 21-2407 Youth Sports Complex, exit 27th Street Extension Project, and approve appointments to the 27th Street Steering Committee.
Commissioner Boley, I'll second that.
This is Mayor Nanda. We have a motion from Vice Mayor Finkeldye, a second from Commissioner Bully. Vice Mayor Finkeldye?
Aye.
Commissioner Bully?
Aye.
Commissioner Larson?
Aye.
Commissioner Shipley?
Nay.
Mayor Nanda, aye. That passes 4-1 with Commissioner Shipley voting against.